This is the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry.
Welcome to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. Getting really close to Christmas, so it's still like winding down. People are like stopping working, getting ready into the holiday spirit, Christmas shopping, and getting ready for dinners and family events and all sorts of stuff. So I kind of thought about this week. I was like, hell, let's talk about something that I haven't talked about much. I talk about education, I talk about like mentorship and all sorts of stuff, but like I want to talk about podcasts and audiobooks, which I know is sort of Inception podcast, talking about podcasts inside a podcast, but I really want to talk about this because I think it's a very underestimated angle of education. Now, I know that most hipsters out there want to read like a black and white book. I don't have a lot of time to sit down. I don't really learn that well in the book stage of things. Like I don't read and retain information. I never have. I've definitely been more of a action, absorb the action, redo it over and over and over again. I think that's the bartender in me. Even in school, I wasn't like fantastically knowledgeable when it came to regurgitating information and tests. I don't test well at all. Regardless of my school grades and stuff, I don't taste well at all. I play the numbers, and I know where I'm standing with my grades going into my finals, because I don't test well at all. And I've aced whole classes and then fucking bombed the final test. So I want to talk about podcasts and audiobooks, mainly because, one, I don't care if obviously if you're listening to this, you listen to my podcast, but a lot of people don't. And that's fine. And I think people sort of have this sort of negative connotation when it comes to podcasts. Like, I understand the connotation of middle-aged males, 30-year-old males wanting to do a podcast, that sort of stuff. I get it completely. But I think audio is an underrated element of education. And the reason why I say this is that I recently downloaded a couple of audiobooks. They're 5 to 12 hours long. But I walk a lot. I take the dog for a walk. I smoke a cigar. That sort of thing. Like I walk downtown in Victoria. And I have this nature where I listen to music, but I'd like to listen to something else. And so I wanted to give my 2 cents on what podcasts are really, really good. And I'm not going to plug my own because you're already listening to it, so I don't need to plug my own. But podcasts that you should listen to. Gary Vee is someone who I listen to on a daily basis. Not only just for the business side of things and the social media side of things that I sort of follow him on, but he gives a lot of good life advice, and I try and push this on my friends a lot because I think he's the most realistic, speaks to me as a hospitality person because he's from the retail wine background and he sort of understands what's necessary to get through this industry and just in life in general, because I think he's very realistic about how he feels about things. And this is really something that like comes across in his speeches. Some people either love him or hate him. And everybody's a love-hate thing. Like anybody who's in a point of elevation and like on the top podium is always going to have a love-hate thing. I push it to a lot of friends who go, no, I don't like the guy. He's weird and crazy. Push him to a lot of other friends and they're like, oh yeah, he's really great. So I love Gary Vee. I listen to him religiously every day. If you are an entrepreneur, which I do not class myself as one, I class myself as a hospitality business person, go out and listen to him because he'll give you a lot of good pointers to keep building your business. Second podcast I really love listening to is Bartender at Large. Eric Castro, by far, is one of my favorite interviewers. Castro and I go back, I want to say 10, 12 years. And we go back a really long way. I'd love to be on his show and I really want him on my show. So we're trying to figure out a way to cross paths and actually like double down on an episode. The next one is, it just lit my mind. It's a hospitality podcast out of Vancouver. He does a really great job at sort of encapsulating Vancouver's hospitality industry, so please go and check that one out. I will put in the comments what it is because it slipped my mind like pretty hard right now. So, that's the 3 podcasts I like to listen to on a regular basis. The 3 audiobooks that I have found invaluable. First one. Now, this one was based on a recommendation from my mentor and good friend, Philip Duff, who was on my back for about 5 years to read Getting More by Philip Diamond. And you need to read this book. and check it out because it is a fantastic book, especially if you're getting into consulting. It's helped me a lot with that. You can get an audiobook form, which I really love as well. Audiobooks, I think, are the next evolution of literature because so many people in this day and age with phones and computers and everything else just don't have the attention span to actually sit and read, which I know is a horrible thing to say, but it's the nature of the beast, so hear me out. If I can sit down and read a book for half an hour, I will, but I don't have fucking time. I prefer to be listening, working, walking the dog, doing something else, but also having it in my head. So getting more is a big one for me, so please look it up. Not Philip Diamond, Stuart Diamond. And then you've got Danny Meyer's Setting the Table. Now this one everybody sort of like knows and loves, and I feel like you need to listen to it. It's an abridged version on iTunes for 5.5 hours, read by Danny Myers. Huge one. And then finally, of course, I'm going to go back to Gary Vee to finish this episode off, would be Crush It. And Crush It's available on audiobook, read by Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't like books being read by someone else if it's not the person who authored the book. I just like that sort of authenticity of like someone reading the book that they published and wrote and reading that into an audiobook. And finally, I know I said finally with Gary Vee, but I have to put this one out, would be the abridged version of Cosmopolitan by Toby Caccini, one of my favorite authors of all time. Toby Caccini wrote Cosmopolitan, early 2000s. It was literally my Bible through my early years of bartending. Please go read it. You have to read it. I was lucky enough in 2010 to actually go to Cognac with Toby, and he signed my book, which I still have a copy of. Now, this book was like, went through the ringer because I was on Hayman Island and I would jump in the pool and then I would sit on by the thing and I would actually read back in the day and have it on me. So it was all waterborne, like there was water all sucked up into it and everything because I'd be like wet out of the pool, put it on my chest and like read it. But Toby Caccini's Cosmopolitan is an epic book. I really implore every other bartender in the country to go read this book. It is a fantastic book. So, that is my quick little episode. I think audiobooks and podcasts, if you listen to music in the car, or listen to music at the gym, or anywhere you listen to music, you have time for listening to a podcast that could better your life skills, your business, everything. And that's the way I look at it, is like, everybody says that they don't have time for things. I was like, if you enjoy listening to music at the gym, that's fine. I get it. I'm not trying to change the way you do things, but you can't complain about not having enough time to do these things if you can listen to your favorite things at the gym. So, anytime you have free, which is what I do, is I listen to podcasts when I'm driving, picking up the dog, getting the wife, running errands, all this stuff. That's when you actually use it to better yourself through podcasts and audiobooks. So, that's the post shot this week. We're getting really close to Christmas. What am I going to do for the Christmas episode? Because I think mine is on Christmas Eve. I have no idea. But thank you guys for the support this year. I'm going to keep thanking you till the cows come home because I couldn't do this without you. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Enjoy this week's episode. It's Rebecca Wellman from Eat Magazine. Really great little episode. And so I'll have a good week. Bye.
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.